Hey, what's going on? Welcome back. Appreciate you tuning in. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to dominate in hyper-competitive niches like AI, info, coaching, can be e-com as well, or whatever nonsense you might have gotten yourself into. This video is probably going to be one of my more slept-on videos, but it's one of the concepts that has made me, or that is responsible for making me a ton of money. All right, this is business strategy at its highest and at its core. So we're going to talk about how to dominate in these hyper competitive niches, primarily by using a framework that has allowed me to cut through pretty much every niche industry and business function I've been in. So I ran a health and wellness coaching business. It was like high performance coaching, a lot of feel good stuff, and totally completely different from what I'm doing now. So the AI stuff and like the consulting work, and this still applies. It allowed me to grow that business to that was a multiple six-figure business, and so this applies to literally everything you do in business, and honestly outside of business as well, sports, anything like that. This framework that I'm about to give you has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I use this to close five-figure deals routinely. Helps me in my sales. My closing rate has shot up because of it. And I imagine that it will have a similar effect on you too if you truly internalize this. So, a lot of succeeding in business is about being able to slow the game down and think ahead. You know, when you get really good at something, like you get really good at a sport and it almost slows down, where in moments people are feeling the adrenaline and like they mess up and make really stupid mistakes. You can't afford to be able to do that. Like, you can't afford to make mistakes like that, silly mistakes, at least when you're in hyper competitive niches. Like, the reason why you aren't getting clients is because someone else is getting the clients. And so this is about being able to compete and poach and take those clients, but also to dominate the market and become the number one option in the market. So this applies to whether you're just starting out or whether you're making 50 grand a month plus. A lot of succeeding in business and in the business you are in is about being able to slow the game down and think ahead. And both of those things are made easier when you have a framework. So to make sure this is drilled in properly, we're going to talk about number one, fundamental business strategy, so the framework itself. Number two, the role of AI in all of this, because in today's day and age, we can't help but think about how AI is going to affect this and how we can move faster and dominate at a higher level using AI. And that's something you should always be like checking in with and asking for yourself, like, okay, what's AI's relationship to this? What's AI's role in this? How can we, incorporate AI into this, so on and so forth. And then number three, how to build a massively profitable and lucrative content machine. I might say this for another video. It definitely deserves its own video. We'll see. All right. So this is for folks in the AI space, info coaching. I'm in both and I do quite well. And it's my hope that you can use these strategies that I share here to get results for yourself too. If you don't know who I am, I own and run two companies at the moment. Number one, an AI marketing agency, AI emailing agency to be more specific. And then number two, a consulting company, Spectre. So if you see me with this merch on, that's what that's about. Under which I have coaching and educational offers for other folks trying to build agencies and businesses like mine. Cool. Laundry list of social proof. If you're new to the channel, you can get this document. I would recommend you download it for free, by the way. Once you're done watching this, link will be in the description. Just put your info in the type form. Excuse me, and I'll send it over to you along with some other tips throughout the week. I put out no BS content. I make no income claims. My results are not typical. Cool. So first, we must understand business strategy and ad strategy as well. We'll talk about that in brief. That's also for another video. But people treat ads like Meta Ads Manager as a slot machine, and people treat business like it's random and it's about luck and network and connections. And that's not all the way true. Like those, you can be quite strategic as to how you go from nothing to something, and this happens by using a framework called a SWOT analysis. Now, I went to business school. It's not one of my proudest moments, to be honest. Like, sometimes I'm proud of it, sometimes I'm not, because like I went to business school to learn about how to be, like, I essentially became a really well trained employee. Like, it doesn't teach you how to start a business. So there's that and other reservations. But at the same time, the path I took ended up making me really sharp when I did end up becoming an entrepreneur. So anyway, so I've trained myself to think this way that I'm about to break down to you, right? This is a SWOT analysis. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So the strengths and weaknesses within your business that will cause you to succeed or not. And then training yourself to look at the opportunity. So training yourself to look at the strengths and weaknesses within the business or within yourself, within your sport. And then also the opportunities and threats that exist outside of you or outside of the business. Like, what are the opportunities? How can we cut through? And also, how can we be taken out? And this is something you got to think about all the time. So when I was coming up on, like when I was building Vintascale, for example, I knew that weaknesses, I had a lack of results, a lack of case studies. My strengths are that I was good at sales. I was good at being a spokesperson. Like, I knew myself. I knew who I was, right? I knew that I was good at building trust, right? I knew that I had a lot of like workforce energy, and so I could produce a high volume of output. So we could very much get this off the ground, like just by sheer volume and results, we'd be able to overcome the weaknesses. Like, we'd have to use the strengths to, right, mitigate the not mitigate, to overshadow the weaknesses here, right? And then the opportunities that exist outside, like, okay, I was like, okay, well, nobody's really talking about cold email in this way on TikTok, so let me be on TikTok. Nobody is doing a YouTube video every single day in this niche, so let me do a YouTube video every single day in this niche. So, you know what I mean? Things like that. And then threats, well, all right, so I'm on YouTube or I'm an agency. There's always the threat of another competitor. There's always the threat of someone else stealing my ideas. But is that going to kill us? Not really. You know, like, what is the actual threat here? Okay, you can have a client go rogue, but how often does that really happen when it's a contractual engagement? I mean, the biggest thing is, like, I remember when I was trying to launch Spectre, I was thinking, okay, like, well, someone can easily copy. I was really pushing the AI emailing and AI cold email trend. And I was like, okay, well, any one of these bigger fish within this lane can easily just do what I'm doing, or just launch a program like this, you know? And it happened, but because I had thought of that already, I realized that there was an opportunity to niche down even further, for example, right? Whereas people were launching like blanket AI programs, I was like, okay, let me launch something that's really focused, AI emailing. Great. Let me brand it differently. Great. Right? And so there's literally, when you think about it this way, like, it's very hard to be stopped. And so I've trained myself to think this way naturally. Like, I don't purposely ask what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when I'm doing something. It's just how I naturally see the world now and how my brain naturally operates. Same thing on calls, right? Like, on a sales call, you and the other person are sort of sizing each other up, you know, in the sense that, like, you're trying to measure and figure out where each other is at and how much each other knows about a certain topic, or whether this person can or cannot help you, whether the prospect is willing to actually invest in themselves or not. And, you very quickly, like, intuitively, you're gathering their strengths, what are they good at? Okay, this guy's a good talker, or, you know what I mean? Like, this guy's a doctor for his full-time job, so he's very detail oriented, very thorough. Weaknesses, maybe doesn't have a lot of time, so whatever it is. Opportunities, threats, so, might be a good case study. Threats, this person might go rogue and not actually, like, follow through with the program. Things like that, right? Things like that. And, like, especially with AI, this is maximized. Like, this is pulled like this. Like, each of those four corners right there are intensified. So your strengths are enhanced with AI. Your weaknesses are enhanced with AI. Opportunities are enhanced times 100 with AI. And then threats are enhanced times 100 with AI. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But again, this strategy right here applies to anything that you are competing in. So cold traffic, warm traffic, business as a whole, the niche, ads if you're running ads. A large reason as to why your ads may not be working is because other people are outbidding you in these hyper competitive niches. cold emailing, like this applies to everything. So I'm gonna break this down, which I should have started with, but this is really important to know. So a SWOT analysis, this right here that you're seeing, is a strategic planning tool. By the way, I learned this in school. Why I went on the tirade of like business school is because I learned this in my first year and I never thought it'd be useful. So it's funny to see this coming back around. But anyway, a SWOT analysis is a strategic planning tool used to evaluate a project or business by identifying internal strengths and weaknesses alongside external opportunities and threats. And so it enables you to leverage strengths, right? Correct your weaknesses, exploit opportunities, and mitigate risks, ultimately informing your competitive strategy and decision making, right? So when we talk about strengths, like you got to look at your agency. Like you should do this with your business and with yourself. As if you're a solopreneur, you are the business. So strengths, right? And these are internal. The strengths and weaknesses are internal to the business, internal to yourself as a founder. So the capabilities, resources, and advantages that give you an edge over competitors. So things like your brand, having a really strong brand is one of my strengths. Loyal customers and clients, unique technology, for example. Weaknesses, right? So internal factors that place your business or you at a disadvantage. So lack of resources, poor reputation, outdated technology. And sometimes you're not even aware of these things. The fact that the tech is outdated, which is why you have to really be keeping up with the market and like what opportunities are out there, right? So these are the external factors now that can be exploited to your or your company's benefit. So things like market growth, right? So we all saw the AI market growing exponentially as it still is, faster and more every day. And so that's an opportunity. So we should probably be in that space. Good things happen when you're in the right space. Everything just starts to work in your favor. Loosening regulations, right? So regulations that are getting less strict, in other words, or changing customer trends, right? Those are all opportunities. TikTok Shop, huge opportunity. So, and then last but not least, threats. So these are also external. So external elements that can cause trouble or negatively affect performance, such as new competitors that pop up, supply chain issues, economic downturns. There's all this talk about the market going down, right? So those are all things that you just, as a founder, especially, you need to be aware of, because whoever has the better understanding of business strategy is probably going to win, right? So another way to think about this is for your strengths, like, okay, let's look at what we've got, right? What resources can we deploy? What are our advantages? What's working well? And then weaknesses, what abilities are we lacking? Where are we starting to struggle? How can we overcome these? Opportunities, so who might most value our strengths? What trends work in our favor? What prizes are within reach? And then threats, what headwinds do we face? Who might challenge us and what could go wrong? These are all super, super important. Cool. So I included a bunch of these three of these diagrams in this document. You should download this document and just like read through these and reflect on these. And then in parallel with this, there's this really, really good book by the GOAT, Russell Brunson, the GOAT marketer. Well, him and Hormozi are like LeBron and Michael, pick. But Expert Secrets. So this is a really good book. It's the story, the story of how ClickFunnels. So Russell Brunson started ClickFunnels. If you don't know who Russell Brunson is, the story of how ClickFunnels cut through the noise and became the king of their market is embedded in that book. The story of that, specifically the category king piece. So I'm always seeking. There's this concept about creating your own category versus it's sort of like the red ocean, blue ocean thing. But like nobody really talks about how to create blue oceans in like a really practical way. This book does that. And so I'm always seeking to create my own categories. It's because it's tough to be the king or the number one option when there are other big fish out there. You know, like by the time, yeah, it's like once there's a couple of really big fish, they usually take the biggest shares of the pie. So look at pulling the curtain back on this. Look at like the I'm always trying to do this. Look at like AI cold email, AI email. Like these things were not a thing until I put them out there, and then if you say the same thing enough times, like it becomes a category, and you become synonymous with the brand, right? And that's kind of what politicians do is they say the same thing enough times, and they realize that if how people tend to work is if you say the same thing enough times, they tend to it tends to become the truth. And you can use that same logic to create your own category and your own niche. Like, no, we're not these guys. We're this niche. That's just one of many examples. So you should read this book. You should download this document and just reflect on the SWOT analysis, and then you should do one of these for your own organization, because if you're facing a lot of headwinds or you're not cutting through properly, most people are trying to climb up the mountain when you can really just like sidestep it. You can really just go around it. You know, you can go through the side door where everyone's trying to jam themselves through the front door. You can just go through the side, and this is really how you do it. This is how you cut through hyper competitive niches. So any person you see, whether they realize it or not, who's at the top of their industry has like they've employed this. They've employed this. Right? If it's an Olympic athlete, like strength, they play to their strengths. They're not going to pick the wrong sport. They'll pick the right sport. Right? If they're really tall and lanky and lean, not lanky, but like really tall and lean, they'll probably pick something like swimming. If their weakness is, I don't know, cardio and conditioning, maybe they'll, and like literally down to their genetics, maybe they'll pick a shorter race. Right? And then opportunities, perhaps there's the opportunity, maybe they're born in the United States, and like there's an opportunity to go to the best development school. And then threats, perhaps is a really tough class this year. Like, there's a lot of competitive swimmers, right? And so now you have to figure out a way to cut through around this. This allows you to map everything out, right? And so you guys just got to think about how are we going to mitigate those threats? There's a ton of competitive swimmers. How do we mitigate this? Okay, well, perhaps we do. Let's look at what all of them are doing, and then let's get ourselves like a one-on-one coach. Just one of many examples, or figure out how often they're working, and let's figure out a better plan. Let's work twice as hard. And just again, throwing out examples here, but you know what I mean. So that's really that's really the main gist of this. So now, the role in AI, the role of AI in all of this. So AI, it's almost like every time I speak on AI, there's something new happening, or someone has started like a $1 million one person business, or $1 billion one person business that just happened the other day. Every day there's something new. But you got to think about this, and then think about how AI can allow you to enhance the good, and then reduce the not so good. So reduce the internal weaknesses and the threats, right? And that's how I'm approaching everything. So like, if the weakness internally is that we can't produce enough content, then I'm using AI to help me produce content. Or if the weakness is copywriting, then I'm using AI to help me do copywriting. If the threat is that, I don't know, someone bigger is going to come in and launch an offer just like mine, or whatever it is, or poach my clients, I understand that that's a threat now, right? So what we may be able to do is just provide them a way better experience so they never go anywhere else, or that so we get a ton of reviews, right? But with AI, so I'm heavily dependent on Manus for deep research, and even more so once they release their agent over to WhatsApp. Like it allows you to connect it to WhatsApp. That's going to be amazing. But I'm really dependent on Manus for deep research and then Claude for writing. And so I think the secret with AI is to not use AI for anything but deep research and copywriting. I think those two things are where it really excels at. And then of course coding. I should also say coding, but like I don't touch on that right now. Cool. So the only place to use AI is actually I probably should get into this, to be honest. The only place to use AI is in the copy, right? Especially when you're running ads. So I'm back and copy and research. Anyway, I'm back and forth between Manus and Claude, but Manus has been doing the job for me on the copywriting side, and while I retrain Claude. Cool. So now, content machine. This is very straightforward, but the number one thing so none of this matters if you don't execute. You know what I mean? Like I am of the belief that there is a new kind of entrepreneur, and this new entrepreneur is incredibly intuitive and savvy because they've just been coming up around business for so long, just seeing it on social media, right? And in that same breath, they are also heavily on social media. Like you're seeing it now with the younger folks, like the Brez Scales and all these other younger folks who are crushing it right now. Like typically, you'd have to wait until about my age to start making some real money on the internet, like 20 29, 30. But I mean, the younger folks, like now it's like you're seeing kids, literal like young adults making $10,000 a month. It's amazing. Anyway, but like none of this matters if you don't execute it, right? So I think to really dominate to these levels, you have to play to your strengths. And if your weaknesses are like my weakness was, you know, I'm very much a founder and intuitive and strategic and like all these nice things I can say about myself, but like in in terms of giving the business structure, I wasn't good at that because I never needed it because it was just me. And so I needed to bring on a head of operations, and so I did. My strengths, again, I'm a good personality, and so I'm like, okay, let's double down on putting that out there. Opportunities, threats, so on and so forth. We discussed that, but I think the new kind of entrepreneur who's really going to dominate and hit the levels that we talk about on this channel, um, they do content. They do content. Like the amount of people I know who um, make a ton of money but don't do content is going down. It's going down every year. And like you can look at like a special case like Ryan Clogg, who just came out the gate one day. He opens up YouTube and he's like, "Yeah, we've made $70 million on this thing." Well, Ryan Ryan Clogg has a team, right? And he's working the back end, and he has people who are on the front end of the marketing. He does the back end of the marketing, and most people I don't think as are even willing to go out there and put their trust in someone else, right? Anyway, so this is really really important. This is more business strategy. If you like this stuff, just give a thumbs up on this video or leave a comment, and I'll talk about some more business strategy stuff. It gets deep. This has allowed me to close a lot because I can do this for myself, but I can do it for someone else as well, right? Opportunities. This is the hottest opportunity we've ever seen in our lifetimes, right? That's something I might say on a sales call. Threats. Well, if you don't get it now, window's going to close. Da 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 da. Right. Weaknesses. Strengths, obviously you're highly intelligent, highly emotionally intelligent. You're going to do great at this, so on and so forth. I can help you build this. Weaknesses, perhaps you don't have a lot of time, so we're going to have to mitigate that. Like things like that allow me to really relate with the person on the other side and structure really big deals in this way. Because it just comes down to what a company is good at, bad at, and then the opportunities and threats that exist outside of them. And so if a client is like, yeah, you know, if they come to me and they need on a very basic level, they need help getting more clients. Well, it's a pretty easy sell when I know what their strengths and weaknesses are. Strengths, maybe they have a strong referral network, but weaknesses, they have no like outbound mechanism. Opportunities, oh, if they can do this, they can scale, but the threats, I mean, they're going to get wiped out if they don't jump on this early and start marketing and put themselves out there. It's simple stuff like that. Anyway, so I'll leave this with you guys. See you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.